Hey everybody, it's Tommy Canale and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show that tells you how they made their mark. Today we're going to talk about a rivalry, a football rivalry in the state of Montana, one that's been going on for over 120 years. I've interviewed two from each side to talk about their feelings and what it was like to be part of this rivalry. If you haven't heard of it before, get ready. If you're from the state of Montana, really get ready because the show is here. The Montana State football rivalry is an annual college football rival game between the University of Montana Grizzlies and the Montana State University Bobcats. This game is most historically and commonly known as the Cat-Griz game, and sometimes as the Griz-Cat game. Since 1997, the match has been advertised as the Brawl of the Wild. The winner receives this massive Great Divide trophy as the universities are on opposite sides of the Continental Divide. This rivalry began in 1897, making it the 31st oldest in NCAA Division I. Since 1993, the matchup has been the final game of the season for both teams. As of 2022, the game has been played 121 times. Montana officially leads the all-time series 73, 42, and 5. At times in the past, the two teams would play twice a year. In the first 23 years of the Big Sky Conference, Montana State enjoyed its most successful period in the Cat-Griz rivalry with a 17-6 win-loss record and 2 national titles, 1 Division II and 1 Division I AA. A new period began in 1986, often known in Montana as the Streak, in which Montana won 16 straight games in the series. The Great Divide Trophy was created in 2001 by Dave Samuelson and was made possible by numerous donations. The winner of each game possesses the trophy for 1 year. The school with the most wins during the trophy period will take permanent possession of the trophy at the end of the 21st century. As of 2022, the trophy series is tied at 10-10. The Great Divide Trophy weighs 306 pounds and is one of the heaviest college football trophies.
There's obviously bigger Division I rivalries all around the country that are going on. But, as far as a state and the size of the state and the perspective that they have on the game, this one is very, very special.
Rivalry week here in Big Sky Country.
All the makings of a classic.
18th Brawl of the Wild in
Montana State and Montana.
one of the best rivalries in college football.
It is one of the most heated and historic in all of college football.
And if this isn't the best rivalry in FCS, I don't want to know what is.
He was a USA Today Honorable Mention All-American, a fullback that finished his college career at the University of Montana. He played for the Baltimore Ravens, the New York Jets, and the Arizona Cardinals in the NFL. He was named Big Sky Newcomer of the Year and is currently the recruiting coordinator and running back coach for the Grizzlies. Please welcome in Justin Green. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing great. Unfortunately, I got to correct you on a few things. One, I was never fortunate enough to play for the Jets. They actually cut me before I got there. They failed me on a physical before. I didn't even take a physical. It's kind of weird.
Wow.
But I did have lunch with Brett Favre at that time, so that was pretty cool. It was a short stint, probably about 3 hour stint with the Jets.
Wasn't even a cup of coffee then.
No. But a lunch for Favre, hey, it was worth it all there.
You're from San Diego. 3 varsity letters in football, 2 in basketball that included a state championship. You set records for rushing at San Diego High School. What did you know about Montana?
I didn't know much. I actually started out my career at San Diego State, and I went to San Diego State 2000, 2001. Had a coaching change and no longer fit at San Diego State. So I went to San Diego Mesa, it's a local junior college there. Have helped me fall back in love with football. My running back coach actually got the offensive line job here at Montana, Dave Schramm. And I was actually on my way to a trip to Idaho, and Coach Schramm goes, "Hey, you're coming to Montana." I go, "Okay." And so I finished my trip to Idaho, and the very next week came to Montana and fell in love with the people up here.
How different then for you was Missoula compared to being a California kid?
Quite a bit. Up until my recruiting trip, I had never seen the snow.
Okay.
So that was by far, number one as far as a change, but it was definitely something I was ready for. Being a Southern California kid all my life, it was time for me to see something different and do something different. And if coming on that trip allowed me to do everything that I would have loved and never done if I didn't come. So I love Montana. I love this place. And I've traded in my beaches for lakes and rivers.
On that trip then, Justin, when you were on campus, was there something about the campus, the environment, the state, the football? What was it that made you go, all right, I opened my eyes to coming to the University of Montana?
The people.
Oh.
My first walk down the middle of campus, 4 people said hello. And where I'm from, that's not normal.
No.
And I thought that this must be Pleasantville, if everybody is saying hi to you. And it was really neat for me just to have that experience, and people wanting to know who you were, and people knowing who you are before, as on my recruiting trip. Those were all kind of neat things that I would say that college football and the environment that you're supposed to play in, it's an awesome environment in that aspect, that everybody knows who you are. Everybody wants to know who you are. All town, you're the NFL team. It's a neat experience for a young man, especially coming out of Southern California, where there's so much to do. All to do here in Montana is to see the Griz.
Explain to my listeners then, from you coming from California, falling in love with Montana, now coaching there, what is Grizzly pride?
Well, there's if you look at the state as far as the type of, it's a state where people wave, on your block, everybody on your block, you wave to everybody on your block. Very blue collar oriented, as far as the history of Montana. The guys here that are in high school, they work on their family's farm, and they're bred a little different here. They're tough guys, just because of the things that they go through in the summer and the winter, and between we have quite a few guys on our team that hunt and don't buy meat. Their families never bought meat because they hunt it every year. Mm-hmm. So there's just there's a different toughness. There's a different blue collar attitude as far as the young man that's here. So as far as the pride, their guys are prideful in their cities where they're from. They're prideful for the state that they live in. They're prideful for the surroundings that are around. I mean, there are going to be very few states that have the mountain ranges that Missoula is tied into. You're in 5 different mountain ranges that wraps around Missoula that makes the valley. So what an incredible atmosphere just on that aspect as far as the beauty of it. So again, it built a different grit of a player, of a fan, of just the people here in Montana. And again, it's because there's small towns. Everybody's prideful of their town. There's rivalries built within schools, mm-hmm. Cities, cross town, cross state, all those things, and it's a neat atmosphere to be in.
What have you learned then about the football in the state of Montana?
The football is, again, you're talking about a tough guy football. There's not a lot of complication, but between school to school as far as what they do, offensive or defensive schematic. I mean, you figure there's just over 1 million people in the whole state. There's 13 Division I schools. Oh, excuse me, I think it's 15 Division I schools now. And when you look at that dynamic, it's just different from California. I mean, there's 15 Division I schools in my town,
right?
In my city. So the dynamic is just a little bit different. You're driving hours to go to a game. If you're not one of the 4 major cities that has multiple schools in that city, you are dealing with guys that the sky's the limit once they get into college, because I would say over 80% of the Montana kids that we're recruiting are 3-sport athletes. Not are they only a good football player, they're also a really good basketball player, and they also do track or tennis or volleyball or something. And when we're looking across the country as far as players, we're looking for guys that are playing multiple sports. And it's nice to be able to go within your state to find those guys that are doing multiple sports. When you run an 11 flat here in Montana, it's very possible that it was snowing at your track meet. So we know that's fast here comparatively to a guy who's running, 10-9, 10-8 in California where right. The sun is shining and those types of things. So it's really nice to find the grit, the tough guy within the state.
When were you first told about the Griz-Cat's rivalry, and how were you explained about it?
I would say within the first 5 minutes of me being on campus, it was mentioned. And more, again, when you talk to fans, there's a few conversations you are going to repeat. Number one, how good are you guys going to be? And are you guys going to beat the Cats? Are always going to be conversations that start off with fans who know who you are, but you may not necessarily know who they are. The expectation of winning football games here at Montana is to win every single football game and to win by 50 and to beat the Cats by 100. So that's their expectation, and that's what they want us to do. And again, that's, as far as our goals, that's definitely something that we're shooting for.
As a player, then, did the nerves amp up more for you, or is it more excitement? What was it like playing in your first rivalry game?
Playing in the first rivalry, and I'm speak to as an out-of-stater, I did not know what I was getting into. I wasn't sure of what it was going to look like. The energy was times 100 of what I was gauging. Because I consider myself to be a veteran player. I played college football, and I knew what rivalry were, and I understand the importance, but I didn't understand it really until I started playing the game. And then as I was playing the game, it really kind of, you could feel the energy and feel the tension and feel the push for what that game meant. And it's hard to explain to a guy who, and technically that's my first game, was an outsider of what that game means. And then as a player, as playing my second round or second go around, again, kind of knowing what to expect definitely had me more prepared of what I was going to be looking into.
Before I go more into about you playing in the game, something just hit me. Then, Justin, how do you explain this rivalry to people in San Diego or California?
You can.
Okay.
Because it's different. It's different from USC to UCLA. It's different, from Oregon State. When you're talking about the majority of the guys playing in the game are from Montana. You're talking about guys that played against each other. I'm sure they played against each other from, when they were little Mighty Mites in, Pop Warner football, to when they got to middle school, to when they got to high school, to now they get into college. So all those things are kind of, they all know each other. There's no Montana kid that doesn't know the other guys that he's playing against. You played against them at some point in your football career. You played against them in basketball. You played against them. You ran against them in track. So you've seen these faces and you know these guys for a lot longer history than I would say a lot of those other rivalries. And again, when you're predominantly, I don't know, I would want to see other schools that have the in-state rivalry that have as many guys as we have respectively playing on that roster. And it's just a different feel. It's a different hate, so to speak, that you get. And it's a different competition. It really is what it is. It's the ability to be able to compete against each other in a high intensity environment.
Then back as a player, did you feel more pressure in that game to win?
I don't know if we necessarily felt more pressure. I think, again, for us, the expectation as a player was to win them all. We had goals to play in a national championship. And if we could beat our rivals, that was going to propel us into the playoffs to go do that. So, as a player, we were, the 2 years that I played here, we were pretty successful. And, some of that was probably based on that game. My junior year, we lost to the Cats and lost in the first round of the playoffs. My senior year, we beat the Cats and we go to a national championship and play in a national championship game. So I would say that's a big stepping stone, to one of our four goals. And that definitely, as far as the pressure, that's the added on. It's, hey, we know what the expectation of what it is that we need to do here.
I would think you'd be the perfect person then. What do you tell players as a coach from kids who are out of state of what to expect in this game and this rivalry?
You prepare your kids all the way through the year as far as how to mentally prepare for a game. What you want to make sure you don't do is psych them out as far as what this game means. Yes, this game is important, but every other game that we're going to have to get to this point is going to be important too. There's going to be a special importance for this game, but gosh, the next game, that's going to have a little more, importance on it as well. So really, it's just kind of, when you talk about seasons and you're trying to prepare your players, you've got the regular season, you've got the 1 week season, and then you've got the playoff season where winner, loser goes home. So if you can think of it more that way and always have that more in the back of your head, as you're getting to that game, I think your preparation, it's a little bit every week that you're going to have a little bit as far as a little more oomph at that end of the year going into that game and then propelling you on through.
How much competition is there between you and Montana State for in-state recruits?
It's big. It's big because, again, we are fighting for the same tough and grit of the player that we secretly hold the keys to. The great thing about the state of Montana, 90% of the players that recruiting wanted to be go to one of two schools, or would go to the school that maybe was recruiting them a little more. There's been a lot of loyalty broken. As it may. Whatever the case may be is of why one guy went to a school and his family didn't, and, grandparents are upset and all those things. But to be able to fight for the best players, again, we don't have that many people in the state of Montana as it is. So to be able to fight and get the best players out of the state is definitely something. And there's a little bit to that. You're going to be fighting for guys that, you don't know maybe what position they're potentially going to play. Sometimes you get the 6'4" guy and he ends up he plays quarterback for his Montana high school team and he ends up playing linebacker or safety or O-lineman, for you. And you kind of never know from player to player, specifically. Now you can take your best guess and hope that you're getting the guy you're getting for the position you're getting, but they're going to take a little time as far as needing the weight room. They're going to take a little time as far as gaining the weight. And then there's going to be some that are going to be ready-made after their freshman year. So it's great to be able to be looking at guys within the state to be able to make up the team because those guys are, I would say, less than 100 miles away, but that's not true either because as you get to Darby and Baker and, as you get across the state, it becomes a little farther. But still home to them, and guys that we want to make sure that we're evaluating and getting on our team.
I can only imagine on both sides, if you're grabbing somebody where the family has gone to Montana State and they've chosen to come to the Montana, the family may be reluctant to change colors, jerseys to root for their own kid.
No question. I would say that happens quite a bit. It's not a unknown deal, and we hear about it. And I would say that probably comes a little more pressure within the player. But he's the player. He's the one that people are pulling him, pulling his ties with. So our guys tend to do a good job of handling that. And the guys that bleed maroon and silver no matter what their family did before them. So.
Right. How do you approach this game differently now as a coach for the Griz than playing for them?
Again, for me, it's making sure, I probably have one of the rooms that have the most out-of-state guys, and preparing them for that. I mean, preparing them for what they're getting themselves into. The guys that have played in it are great. That played in it as freshmen and played more particularly the over there. Because it's different. It's different from playing a home game versus away game over there, because that's going to be the most hostile environment that we play in, probably for the career of the guys that are playing. We go into Oregon, and it's a good environment. We've gone into Washington, and it's a good environment, but nothing prepares you as far as FCS football to be able to go play in that environment. So getting guys prepared to weather the storm is a big deal. And then again, it means a little more, as far as this game, and getting those guys to understand what that is, what that sounds like, what that smells like, what the anticipation of what it is, because it's hard to prepare them for that. But again, the more guys you have that have played in that game, the more understanding that they understand as far as what's at stake.
You had mentioned earlier that you felt the energy and how different it was first time playing it as a player, and now preparing your own guys as a coach. Being from California and now trading in the beaches for the lakes and the mountains, what's this rivalry taught you, Justin?
Well, a few things. I would say, first and foremost, just the competitive nature, and again, of the young men in Montana, because the guys that are over there, most of those guys we recruited as well. We were in those homes. We making phone calls to them. We have relationships with them, so they know who we are, and vice versa. They know who we are, and as we respectively have that relationship, it has a bond, tied to Montana that's a little different than things that have tied me to California. More particularly with the guys that are on this team. You're gonna after their football is over. There's a few things that you hang on to, and that's a neat experience that those guys are able to hang on to. When you're done at the University of Montana, you're prepared for everything. You have this sense of I can handle anything, and as a coaching staff, that's something we want to prepare our guys for, and that game is part of it. You're gonna. Again, the environment that you're going to have to play in, the adversity that you're going to have to face, is something that's real in real life. What do you do when you have to face adversity to the highest extreme? And that game is part of it. That game is going to teach you as far as how to battle adversity when the odds are against you, or when things are for you. How do you handle being on top? I've been on both sides of that end, as far as being ranked higher and also being ranked lower. And so I think, as a young man, it helps you what's going to happen for you for the next step. And then again, the competition of it. I mean, there's no preparing guys for the expectations of not only just that game, but expectations of what people expect around here. They expect, us to have good young men. They expect us to put a good product on the football field, and they expect us to do well in the classroom. And and our guys are doing that. I'm fired up to be a part of this rivalry. I'm fired up to be a part of the University of Montana. It is something that to me is, again, the people have made this place and they've made it special. And from a young from a California kid who fell in love with this place to a guy who loves it even more today, this is a special place.
I can't think of another rivalry. I can't find one that literally divides a state in half. I mean, there's no middle ground, and there's not like there's 2 or 3 other colleges. It is down the middle. You're on one side or you are the other. And for over 100 years, 120 years plus, it has been that way. It is remarkable.
No question. It is. It's a different deal when you're dealing with as many prospects from the state that are on our respective teams and the history of it. That hasn't changed, since football became, really good on as far as the state, that has not changed.
What do you think about when you hear the word Bobcats or Cats?
Well, respectfully, I've had some guys do some work on my lawn. If they're using a Bobcat, we'll put tape over it. So there's just certain things you don't mention in our house. And, my daughter sings songs that reflect that. There's just some things you don't do, some things you don't say. And Cat and Bobcat are some of those things.
Justin, thanks for taking some time out of your schedule and being part of this program. I appreciate you, man.
You got it.
13,362, a new Grizzly record on hand on a perfect day in Missoula. The Grizz struck on the very first play from scrimmage. Quarterback Brent Keys goes deep and finds Abe Garza for a 40-yard gain. With a running play to give us to Mike Eller, he breaks it inside, then takes it out to the sideline and goes 50 yards for the touchdown. It was 24-0 Montana.
He was a tackling machine at Montana State and is the 4th leading tackler of all time. In 2007, he was a first-team All-Big Sky and All-American. In 2008, an honorable mention All-American and is a second-generation team captain, joining his father. He's a 2019 Montana State Hall of Famer and one of the greatest linebackers in Bobcat history. Currently the assistant head and linebackers coach at MSU. Now it's time to hear from Bobby Daly.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. What is your first memory of hearing or seeing this iconic rivalry?
Well, my dad played, as you mentioned, my dad played for Montana State in the late 70s and had a whole heck of a lot of success against the guys over the hill. But me being born in 1986 and, basically being born into a Bobcat family and having no choice as far as who I was rooting for when that game came around, the start of my life, 86 through about 2002, we were on the wrong end of things over here on this side of the hill. So my first introduction to the Cat-Griz rivalry, I guess, wasn't great for the first, 10, 15 years of my life. But the last 15, 20 years of my life have been much better.
When for you was the dream to one day play in this game?
I grew up around football my whole life. My dad was a high school coach at Capitol High School in Helena. So, my first memories of wanting to be a football player stem for playing for the Bruins, playing for Capitol High School. And, it wasn't until, I probably got into middle school when I had made the decision when I was playing a lot of football, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and really had a love for the game that I kind of decided in my mind I wanted to play at the college level. And at that point, it was always the Cats. And, going to games on Friday nights under the lights at Vigilante Stadium, and then turning around the next day and driving down to Bozeman with my father to watch games here on Saturdays, it was always just such a bigger time feel. You're in the stands, and you're looking down on the field at these players and coaches, and, you know, they were just larger than life to me at that time, where, you know, I was on the sidelines at Capital High School. I got to brush shoulders with the, you know, the varsity team who was playing on Fridays. And, you know, being the son of a coach, they wanted to get to know me. So I had relationships, whereas, you know, it was just different going to Montana State and looking at the players on the field. They were just, like I said, larger than life. They were, you might as well have been the Oakland Raiders to me, you know.
You eventually signed with the Bobcats. When you signed, when did this game start getting talked about to you? Was it signing day? Was it during recruitment? When did they start telling you? I mean, you know, from being from Montana, how big of a game it is, but when did the coaching staff and the players start really talking to you about this game?
Well, it was when I was in high school that the streak was broken. You know, when Travis Lulay and Junior Adams and Roger Cooper and, you know, those guys went down to Missoula and broke the streak. So at that point, I believe I was either a sophomore or junior. I can't remember exactly, but I remember, you know, wanting to, you know, be a part of it every year and, you know, talk smack to your buddies who are Griz and, you know, have some friendly wagers as well, you know, whereas before that, you just didn't really want to get involved in those type of things. So it started in high school, but I was well aware of the rivalry all the way through. And, you know, my dad had a lot of success in that game. Him and his teams did. So he always would remind me, like, hey, this is not how it's always been, you know, and it's not how it's always going to be. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to be a part of a win, you know, as a player, and then several as a coach now. And, you know, I was glad to see the tides turn.
From a player standpoint, and we'll get to it as a coach, what was the week leading up to that game like for you as a player?
It was different, you know, and it should be different. And I think that's one of the things that you kind of fall into when you get into a season, is having some consistency from week to week as far as your preparation habits, as far as your practice habits. But it was very apparent, you know, Coach Kramer was the head coach here when I first got to Bozeman. And, you know, he made sure to make us feel like this game was different. And there's, you know, you can look across the line of scrimmage, you know, for me in particular, and look at guys that you grew up playing against, you know, your whole life in high school, and not necessarily being friends, but having relationships and knowing who each other, who we were at the very least. And you just, without knowing much about somebody, develop a little bit of a hate for them.
How do you then maintain emotions and all the adrenaline on game day?
Yeah, you know, I think whether I knew this as a player or not, one of the things that we say as a coaching staff is play with emotion, but don't be emotional. You know, there's a lot of emotions that could come out in this game. You know, I mentioned the hatred earlier, you know, those aren't the type of emotions that we want to see on game day against these guys. They're not being emotional, but playing with emotion and playing with your boys and with your brothers.
For people that are listening that this may be the first time they're hearing about this rivalry and they're starting to learn more about it from this show, Bobby, can you explain to them what the town is like on game day when it's your turn to host the game?
Well, I think that's something that's unique about this rivalry is it's not just the town. It is literally the entire state. Montana is the fourth largest state as far as land mass, and I think we're the second or third as far as population. So, you know, we don't have a ton of people in the state. We don't have professional football teams, professional anything. You are the show when you play football for the Cats or the Griz. And, you know, I've used the term Montana famous, like you can take my name and walk it into any other state, any other 49 states in the United States, and nobody has a clue who Bobby Daly is. But because I played football for Montana State and now coach, there's a good chance that at the very least you'll recognize the name, because the game is so big in this state. And, you know, sometimes it divides households. but there's very few people that are Bobcats and Griz fan. You're either one or the other. And me personally, and some people may feel different about this, but I don't like to see them do well. I like to see them do poorly. And I know some of them feel the same way. I've heard different people say, well, if Montana's not in it, we'll root for the Bobcats type of a deal. And more power to those people. I guess the rivalry runs a little bit deeper in my family and my veins that, when the Bobcats are doing well, great. But I have no issues at all with Montana doing poorly.
From a coaching standpoint and as a player standpoint, explain to me what it's like when you're playing this game at Montana and you're on the road. How different is it from a mind standpoint?
I would say without a doubt, the home team has a significant advantage. Okay. I would say, just looking at the landscape of FCS football between Montana State and Montana, I think we have two of the best game day environments in the country at this level. And, I think we have a definite advantage when we're at home and, you have something to overcome. From that crowd standpoint, from the momentum that can be created in that stadium to overcome when you go and travel to Missoula.
So it's basically, as you hear in a lot of sports, it's us against them, and basically it's you against the entire stadium.
Without a doubt. Yeah. You don't, if we're hosting it, you don't hear a lot of noise when they're doing well. And same thing, I think we do a pretty good job of making sure that we try to keep those tickets to the blue and gold when it's in Bozeman. And I know for a fact they do the same thing when it's in Missoula.
What's your favorite memory of this rivalry as a player?
Oh, boy. I think as a player, the first game that I played in my freshman year was definitely the most memorable because we won that game. Again, I kind of referenced Travis Lulay already, but he was the quarterback on that team, and I remember him having a very good day. I remember us playing really well on defense. But I also remember going to their place my sophomore year, and unfortunately that was not a game that we won. But, man, it was just a slugfest, big hits, a defensive battle. I think the score ended up being 13-7. We got a pick with, 5 minutes left in the game, and our offense had an opportunity to go down and score and win it. We obviously weren't able to get it done on that day. But, obviously winning the game is certainly going to hold precedent over that game. But I do remember walking off the field and feeling like, man, that was a fun game to be a part of. And I know just from the feedback I got from everybody else that it was a fun game to watch as well, just because of the physicality.
After Montana State, you played for the Billing Outlaws in the Indoor Football League for a few seasons. How difficult was it for you going from a player and then watching this game after your playing days before you became a coach here?
Yeah, my brother came right after me. So I graduated in 2008, and then my brother got here in the fall of 2009. So I went to every one of those games. I remember the first one in particular, I think in 2009. No, I'm thinking 2010 was a really cold day in Missoula that I was down there in Missoula to watch. And I remember Denarius McGee being the quarterback and the Bobcats winning on that day. But it's never been far from me. My parents had about 10 straight years between the 4 years that my brother and I each played in our redshirt years where they were going to Bobcat games. And obviously with me being a coach, they're still coming down to them. But yeah, this game has never been far from me.
Speaking of a coach then, how different is this game for you now as a coach?
Man, I would say, being on this side of things, I think one thing you don't really realize as a player is how much time your coaches put into the preparation and, how much time as a coach that you really study your opponent and how much time on a weekly basis that we talk about our team as well and what we're doing well. And, I guess as a player, I had no idea how much was going on behind the scenes. I had my preparation and what I would do from week to week, but just from a coaching standpoint, it means a ton being a former player as well. I really tie in my record as a player along with my record as a coach, because that's the only way I can be competitive these days. I don't get to strap it on and go out there and play, but that's how I ride my roller coaster and get my adrenaline rushes on game days. And I mean, there's no better day than Cat-Griz every year.
You've mentioned this a couple times and how deep this rivalry runs in your family from the time that your father played in it, you've played in it, your brothers played in it, you're now coaching in it. There's a lot of history from your family in this rivalry. The big game of the year, and this week has come. How big is this for your family for just this one game of the season? What I'm trying to get through the listeners is this is the pinnacle of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the last game of the year, of the regular season, I should say. And, it typically always has playoff implications, whether you're going to get a bye, whether you're going to be a Big Sky Conference champion, whether, you're going to make the playoffs some years. And because of the state of both of our programs, it always means something at the end of the year. So I think that is huge. But more than anything, I think what you're alluding to is when you walk around the state of Montana, when you walk around, whatever town that you're in, you can hold your head high and know that at least for another year, if anybody is, talking about Bobcat Griz, we've got the trump card on that individual year. So, yes, it definitely holds weight, not just for that day, but for an entire year.
I'm imagining then, whether it's a win or a loss, has huge on how the next month is going to go in everybody's lives. That's part of these universities. That's putting so much emphasis, and there's so much bragging rights on one game at the end of the season that has all these implications. That win or loss, if it's a win, it's this high roller coaster. And if it's this loss, it's this, we have a whole year to dwell in this. So I imagine that there's just huge feeling and emotions after the game.
Without a doubt, man. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, it definitely resonates for longer than just that day. And from my standpoint, as you're kind of talking about that, the one thing that triggered in my mind was I'm our in-state recruiter. And both of our rosters are roughly 50% Montana kids. So it certainly has an implication in recruiting as well. So there's a lot of things that go into that game, which, really can set your program and your team up for future success as well.
Did you attend? And what can you say about the Miracle in Missoula?
I did not attend that. I, at the time, was coaching at the University of Idaho. Okay. And there happened to be a guy on staff, Vernon Smith, played corner for the Griz back a little bit prior to me getting to Bozeman, but we're on the same defensive staff. He coached the corners, I coached the linebackers, and we were down playing the University of Florida. So the Gators money game, I mean, they were beating the brakes off of us. And we go in at halftime, and Vernon shows me his phone. And if you remember about the Miracle game, like, the Cats were down big at halftime or right before halftime. One of the cases, I think we were down 3 scores, and just going into that second half of our game, I was like, oh man, it's going to be a rough day, And then I remember coming out of that game, and it was close in the fourth quarter. And it wasn't until we had gotten to the airport where the Cats sealed the deal and won that game. So, I had Vernon talking all day long in my ear while the Griz were up, and I kind of had the last word that day. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
I'll bet it was. When you hear the word Grizzlies or Griz, what's the first thing that comes to Bobby Daly's mind?
Dark pink.
Okay, and the reason for that?
If you're a Bobcat fan, you'll know their colors are maroon and silver.
Right.
Silver, and I guess I've been around my dad my whole life. He just called them dark pink and silver. So,
Bobby, thanks so much for coming on and talking about this rivalry.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Boulay hands it to Groves. Groves fights his way into the end zone for a Montana State touchdown.
In their timing on a lot of their routes, unless they've just done the soft stuff over the middle.
There's that rugby-style punt by Travis Boulay, and it hits J.R. Waller, and that is a live football. J.R. Waller had his back to the play. It hit Waller, and Montana State says they have it, and Montana State has recovered the fumble. What a turn of events there. 3rd and 19 for Montana. They need to get all the way to the other 33-yard line, and that pass is intercepted, and that is Kayam Hunter. Kayam Hunter is taking it back, and he has some blockers. Kayam Hunter is inside the 20, and he steps out of bounds at about the 20.
Joining the program now, he's a 3-time All-Big Sky first-team player for the University of Montana, from walk-on to All-American. He played 9 seasons in the NFL and was inducted into the Montana Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2023. He's currently the assistant special teams coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. From Butte, Montana, Colt Anderson. Colt, I'm proud to have you part of this program.
I'm fired up to be here.
When you hear the term Brawl of the Wild, what comes to mind?
I think of the greatest rivalry in college football. No doubt about it. I was very blessed to play in 3 games, be a part of 5. I spent 5 years at the University of Montana, but I ultimately played in 3, started in 3, and it's a great rivalry that I think a lot of Montana people are proud of.
Do you think it's the biggest football rivalry that's not known across the nation?
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah, it's really cool to see ESPN come out there this year. Obviously, I was a little biased and was hoping that they would come out to Missoula, but definitely a great thing that ESPN was able to do by coming out to Montana and seeing Bozeman and the rivalry and put it on the map, so to speak. But yeah, it's definitely a game that a lot of people don't know about, but people that do know about it know that it's as good as they get.
Can you then speak to my listeners about the enormity of this one game each year?
Yeah, I mean, it rivals, the Michigan, Ohio States, all those big games. It's the state's cut in half, literally. The west side is Montana, the east side is Montana State, and smack dab in the middle is my hometown, Butte, Montana. It's been called multiple things, the Divide War, which is the mountain range that separates the two, and the Continental Divide there. And it's really cool. So it's pretty special, though. I think I speak, for a lot of people when I say that, outside of that game, that we do root for one another. But when that game happens, we're enemies, and we're trying to beat the other guy up, and we're trying to win.
So is this rivalry then? Is it respect? Is it hatred? Or is it both?
Probably say both.
Okay.
Up until the final whistle, it's both. But at the end of the game, you respect your opponent. You respect the work that they put in, and you respect their program, and the fact that they're Montana guys is, a lot of those players on their team are Montana guys, is pretty cool.
From looking into some research, I understand you had 3 uncles who played for Montana and Montana State during the 70s. Mm-hmm. How is that for you growing up? Was it, when this game happens, is the family divided too?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. We're definitely divided. So my dad's brother, Jim, he was All-American safety for the Cats. And then my mom's brother, Barry, was a quarterback for the Cats. They played on the same team, went to Butte High together. So they were 2 Cat guys. And then my mom's other brother, Pat, was a receiver quarterback for Montana. And then my uncle Dave was also a player for the Griz. So it definitely is a family split in half. And we go at each other just like any other family that has a Bobcat and a Griz on each side. So I let my uncles know that, who wins after the Griz win, and they let me know who wins after a Cat win. So they got the bragging rights right now, and hopefully Montana can change that next year.
You attended Butte High School. Did you ever dream or think one day about playing in this big rivalry game?
I did. Yeah, I did. The fact that I had, multiple uncles playing on each side that, really showed me the way that it's possible, really got in my brain thinking that it's something I could do. And I had multiple, there were multiple guys and my dad coached that played at Montana and Montana State. There's my fourth grade teacher, believe it or not, was David Dickinson's aunt in 1995, the year that they won it. That's really when I became a Griz fan, was that year after, they won the national championship. And it was definitely my dream was to play for Montana. And, I was fortunate to get the opportunity to do so. And I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be playing in the NFL, but my dream was to play for Montana because at that time that was our professional team.
So you became a Grizzly after not being recruited at a high school. You attend Montana, you walk on, you had to sit out the 2004 season. When you sat out that season, Colt, and you're on the sidelines watching Montana play, and then this big game comes along that you guys win that year, did it give you a different perspective of now standing on the sideline going, okay, I got a new perspective of this game?
Oh, no doubt about it. Anytime you're on the field and you can feel the hits, feel the speed of the game, feel those blows, it's different. And, so I was able to feel it and, know that I had some work to do, in order for me to, get my chance to play. So it was good to be a spectator, so to speak, but ultimately have that front row seat where I could see and feel the speed of the game and where I needed to improve.
What is the physicality like in this rivalry game compared to the regular season? I got a feeling that there's probably a few cheap shots going on from whistle to whistle.
Yeah, you couple that with the weather being a little colder, hits are going to be a little harder. Guys are definitely, giving everything they got. So the hits are a lot harder, definitely. And then, add the cold to it, and it's a physical game, and one that I was fortunate to come on top. I think the three that I started, so it's pretty cool.
Speaking of the weather, how big of a factor is it even in this game? I know I've seen things where it's cold, it's been snowing, but because of the hype and this adrenaline rush of this game, does it even matter what the temperature is, or are you just playing?
You just got to play, no doubt about it. That's I think both coaches, both sides, Montana State do a good job of, hey, we got to use this weather to our advantage. It's something that we can't worry about. It is what it is, and no matter what the weather is, we're going to go out there and play football. In the back of our head, hey, it's cold, but at the end of the day, you can't worry about it.
What's your favorite memory of all the rivalry games you played in?
I think anyone that was able to play in that 2008 game when we came out in our old school colors and surprised everyone would agree that that was probably the most memorable moment in, the rivalry for, that group of guys that I was so fortunate to play with. The Rob Schultes, Colin Dowse, Mark Mariani, even though he was a junior, a lot of those guys, still talk about it to this day, just the shock in the fans' eyes. And even for us, when Bobby Hogg broke out the duffel bag in the team meeting right before the game, and we just erupted. And then, we go out pregame in our all maroon uniforms, come back in, do a quick change. And, just, you could almost just feel the air, everyone's, breath come out of them just for that split second. It was like a slight pause, and then it just erupted. And I talked to a couple of Cat guys that, were on the other sideline, and they say, when you guys ran out, we knew we were beat. So it was a pretty cool moment to be able to, represent those colors that were worn last in the 1995 championship by Dave Dickinson and their crew. And so, the fact that we got to, be the next team to wear it was pretty cool. And then we got to win on top of that.
What do you say to people that go, it's just another game on the schedule? It's not just a normal game, is it?
No. I mean, this is for bragging rights. You know, and the way both teams are right now, it's, you know, they're both good teams. And so it's for the Big Sky Championship and ultimately the seed, you know, one of the top seeds in the playoff system. So it's a big game. And it's just like, you know, any rivalry, you want to have bragging rights and you want to have those bragging rights throughout the year. You know, for me, I was right in the middle of it in Butte. And so I could go home and, you know, hold my chest high, my chin high, knowing that, hey, we did our work for that year. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you do respect the other side and, you know, the way they handle business. And it's like being your brother, right? You know, you can lay your head in bed knowing that you beat him and you got the last laugh.
What's the feelings like for you as a player after the game when it's over? Are you just spent emotionally, physical? Is it everything you've left on the field? Is it just like, man, I am beat, tired, or are you all jazzed up after a win still?
Oh, I'm jazzed up after any win. You always feel body always feels a little better after a win. There's no doubt about that. You know, something I took for granted in college. We won a lot of games, and you know, we knew we were going to get everyone's best shot when we were at Montana, regardless of the opponent. And you know, we had a pretty good team that year, and we knew it. You know, our season wasn't over after that game. Like, you know, many other teams when they played the last regular season, we knew we had a lot of work to do. So, you know, I was fired up, but I knew I'd, you know, get healthy and get ready for the playoffs. Cause, you know, we ended up playing, I think, another 4 games that year in 2008. And we played a lot of other games after the Cat game, you know, throughout my career.
Speaking of 2008, you guys played for the national championship that year versus Richmond. How much did this rivalry game help you then get prepared for the national championship? I got a feeling that there had to be some things you could take for that to get ready for the national championship game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I don't know specifically how it helped us, but you know, anytime you win, you gain a little more confidence, and I think the more confident team always wins. Now, there's a fine line between being too confident and just confident and cocky. You know, but we were riding pretty high, and we knew we had a good team. I'd say we kind of went into the season as the underdogs. No one gave us a lot of respect, and we kind of had a chip on our shoulder. And, you know, we won a few games that year, and I think we lost to Weber earlier in the year, you know, which really, you know, we took a step back right then and kind of regrouped and said, hey, let's come together and go after this. And that's what we did. And, you know, so when we beat the Cats, you know, we were playing with a lot of confidence, and which ultimately we carried into the playoffs, and we went and I think we won 2 times at home, and then we go to James Madison. We beat them on the road in an upset. I think they were the 1 seed. We might've been the 4, or I don't know what we were, but you know, we beat them, and then, yeah, we made it to the national championship, and ultimately was unable to get that last win, which I still think about quite often, actually.
Colt, what did you learn, if anything, from the rivalry, from playing in it?
Yeah, you know, I think we touched on it a little bit, but just the amount of respect that you have for the opponent. And these are guys, you know, faces. At the end of the day, you're even at the end of the year, season, whatever it is, these are guys that you're going to see in the streets, and you're going to be able to shake their hand and tell them, you know, you ultimately just respect the opponent and the work that they put in, because it's a grind. The college football is a grind, from, you know, winter conditioning to morning workouts to spring ball to class. A lot of guys have jobs on top of that. It's a grind, and it's not, you know, this big, you know, Power 5 school. We're not Power 5 schools where we're treated like professional athletes. We're just normal guys, and you know, it's not easy to play college football. And so you have the ultimate respect for guys, and specifically the Montana State guys.
How different is campus with the students leading up to the week of this game?
Yeah, you definitely feel the rivalry. Yeah, like I said, we knew we were going to get everybody's best shot. And we kind of treated it the same way. We try not to treat it any different. Now, there's certain things we did going into the game, you know, traditions, maybe certain sayings we had, but, you know, we busted our butt every practice. That's just the way we did it. And that's the way Bobby Howe, you know, coached it. We knew we were kind of get, walking around campus, you see all the 3-letter acronyms and stuff, and it gets you fired up. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, for us, it was just a game, but you certainly did feel the different environment on campus. No doubt about it.
Now that you're coaching in the NFL, how close can you still pay attention to the game these days when it's being played?
Oh, I pay attention to it, no doubt about it. Whether it's I'm texting old coaches, guys that I played with, guys on the team, coaches that still coach there. It's Cat Week, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of other sayings for it, but at the end of the day, we want the bragging rights for that year, and it's a fun rivalry. And when I was playing in the NFL, I would find a local. This is really before ESPN Plus and all that, where you could just find it on your phone. Yeah, I'd find the local bar that was carrying it and having the Cat-Griz satellite parties and all that. And I remember going to them when I was in Missoula or in Minnesota and Philly. Indy, there's these satellite parties all over, which is really cool. And for me to experience that outside of the state and seeing how many fans are really watching this outside of the state is really cool. And, I'm in a bar in downtown Philly, and we're having a Montana State, party, which is really cool. And they're all over the country. And so that's a big deal. And, fans start watching the game with you and they say, wow, this is really cool. We didn't think this was as big as game. And so, opens eyes to a lot of people outside that normally won't see it.
Do you guys that are former players make sure you let the guys on the current team know that, hey man, you got to come through here?
I think they feel it. I've never been one to say, this is how we did it. You better do it for us. Because at the end of the day, they got to find their own motivation. And I'm not going to say, hey, this is how we do it. And, it's not for us. It's for them. And they know that. And so, it's tradition. That's what Montana's football is all about. It's got a great tradition. And, I was very lucky to play there.
What do you think of when you hear the word Cats or Bobcats? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I don't know. I'm not, Tommy Malott. Tommy Malott, man. I was able to coach him. Spent 2 years off of football when I got done playing. I spent 2 years in my hometown just raising my boys with my wife and raising our boys. And so I was able to go volunteer at Butte High, and Tommy Malott was our quarterback. And so I definitely cheer for that guy. I'm a big fan of Tommy Malott, and I was very bummed that he didn't become a Griz. But I was pulling hard for him to go there. But end of the day, he chose Montana State, and they're very lucky to have him.
How much is this iconic 300-pound plus trophy a factor for this game?
I mean, it's a factor, no doubt about it. I think it's more than that, though. It's more than just a trophy. Like I said, it's that whole year you go that passes between the games. If you win, you have the bragging rights, you have the pride, you have, it lasts more than that. I was fortunate to win, the one in 06, 07, and 08. And we don't have the trophy for that, but I know that deep down, we have the bragging rights, we have, all that, everything that goes along with it. But, we had that trophy sitting right outside our locker room. We touched it every day because, we knew it was more than just what's about that trophy. We knew it was about more than that, with our fans, our family, everybody in our corner. So it's history. And anytime you can beat a rivalry is a big deal.
Colt, thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule with the Bengals and coming on and talking about the Brawl of the Wild.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
27 seconds left on the clock. Thompson is under center. It's Eric Kinnaman in the backfield. They pitch to Kinnaman. He's running to his left. He's got the corner. He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Bobcats. Eric Kinnaman has given the Bob. Looking to throw. Has the time. Over the middle. Going long to Justin Olsen. And he's got the football on the 20-yard line. Down to the 19. The Griz call. The game winner. The kick is up. And it is good. The Montana Grizzlies have come back to win this football game.
He's a Montana born and raised running back that also was on special teams for the Bobcats. He was a Great Falls Tribune Super State selection in 2013 and 2014, as well as a first-team All-Stater. Let's bring in Logan Jones. Logan's, welcome to the program.
Thanks.
How
you doing?
I'm well. What is your first memory of this rivalry? Is it as a kid watching it or hearing about it? What's the first thought?
The first thing that pops into my mind is I was really young and I went to the rivalry. I went to it at Cat-Griz Stadium and I was going to the Cat and I remember it being so cold. And I remember Chase Reynolds being out there and Denarius McGee. And I just remember that very last drive. And Michael Ryder caught an interception and it sealed the deal for the Cats. And I was about the only one in there happy as hell. that was the first memory of it.
I think it's safe to say then your family, so your entire life has always been Bobcat fans.
Yeah, for the most part. And which is interesting too, because like we're from Kalispell, Montana. So up there, the majority of people are Griz fans. But when I was actually, it's kind of funny, when I was in elementary school, I was really young, and this might be a little interesting, but I had a crush on a girl in elementary school, and she was a Bobcat, and that ended up being how I became a fan. so that's funny. I still remember her name's Kayla Russell.
I love that. Love that. So when you were in high school then, was the thought of always going to MSU on your mind, or were you always looking for a scholarship to play somewhere else?
To be honest with you, I really wanted to play for either school at, coming out of high school, because I just wanted the opportunity to be able to play just for a bigger Montana school, bigger program, just because, I appreciated both teams to an extent. They're Division I, they're the biggest sports teams in Montana, really. So I just always thought if I could get a chance or an opportunity to play for the Cats or the Griz, then I just make the most of it and just try to, just be a part of it in any way I could.
How did you then become a Bobcat?
Well, I got recruited out of high school by the Grizzlies and the Cats, and they both offered me the same offer. But it really just came down to how the Cats were just far more attentive with me. They were a lot more curious about me, and I just heard from them a lot more. And as with the Griz, they gave me an offer and I just didn't really hear anything. So it came down to where I felt more at home and just happier. And I tell you what, I wouldn't change a damn thing.
You started on special teams and ended up as a running back. And the first couple of years of your collegiate career, you're watching the rival game from the sidelines due to injury. What was that like for you?
Oh man, I remember. So yeah, I didn't redshirt my freshman year and I got to play. And then I tore up my knee pretty bad, like 2 games before the Cat-Griz game. And I remember being on the sidelines. I cried a couple times, because growing up in Montana, I was born and raised here. I watched this rivalry my whole life. And just like the chance, like the fact that I could play in it was absolutely a dream come true. And then to not be able to, because like that's the one game I was looking forward to all year. My freshman year, I was like, I can't believe I'm going to be in that game. Like, it's going to be awesome. And it was heartbreaking, to be honest. I was pretty beat up. And then the next year I missed the damn thing again. I tell you what, there wasn't a more humbling experience after missing them, but I was about as sad as a college football boy could get.
But you were part of the miracle in Missoula in 2018. Your team goes down 22-0 in the first half. You guys score right before halftime to make it 22-7. What was the feeling like in the locker room going in at halftime?
Man, you just saying that, I just got chills, like all over my body. When it was 22-0, we were looking around at each other. We weren't down, but we were like, shit, we got to do something here. And we scored, and that was huge, and gave us just that little spark I think we needed. And then we went into the locker room, and everybody's looking at each other and telling each other, like, this ain't how we're going to go out. Like, this ain't going to be how we're going to do this. Like, we're going to go out there. Nobody's going to embarrass us. No matter what happens, we're going to put on a show. And you could just tell when we were in the locker room there for that halftime, and Coach Cho was, I don't even know if he said a word. I think he went in there and I think he's like, you know what you need to do, and walked right out. And I think that was the best thing he could have done, said. And all of us looked around at each other, and I mean, there wasn't any heads down. We were ready to go out there and attack them.
You scored the game-winning touchdown on a 23-yard catch, and this was in Missoula. What emotions does that bring back for you?
I mean, how do you even answer a question like that? You black out for a second almost. And it was like, okay, if we score here, we get the lead, and, you know, sure as shit, Troy tosses me the ball, and I get the edge, and I get in, and I just remember like blacking out a little bit. I pointed at that north end zone though, and then I was like, "Yeah, you guys saw that, didn't you?" You know, I didn't hear nothing from them. And then just all my teammates coming over, jumping, and you know, I'm not the biggest guy, so I had some old linemen jumping on me. I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like tackling me. It was surreal. That was such a staple moment, and for a lot of us, I would say, in our college careers, like the guys that I played with, just that whole game in general. But yeah, that was a special moment, near and dear to my heart.
What was it going through your mind on the sidelines when they have 3rd and goal at the 1 yard line with 14 seconds left?
I mean, I'm shitting myself a little bit, you know. I'm a little bit happy too, you know. I'm happy that we're winning. I'm kind of nervous where they're at. But I just remember my buddy Connor Sullivan, we were holding each other, and just like brothers would, basically. And like we're trying not to watch. It's like we're gonna watch, and just sitting there and seeing how close we were. It was a daunting moment. I mean, it was a little terrifying, but. But it worked out. Yeah, it worked out. You guys make a big stand, get a fumble. You guys hang on to win 29-25. And folks, if you go to the show notes, I'm going to put a link to a documentary, The Miracle in Missoula, and you can kind of watch the documentary. It's excellent. It's well done. But you weren't done, Logan. You made sure the following year, back at your home turf, that you run for 121 yards on 19 carries and a TD and a 48-14 win. What's the feeling like after you beat them back to back? Well, after you beat them 4 times in a row, and that last time, you just give them the hurt. And there's no more little brother. It was like, and about every time I saw those guys, any of those guys who played in that game after, that was from the other side, you know, I could hold my head a little higher. You know, I was like, why don't you give me a drink, huh? You know. It did a lot, I think, for the Cats program too, just in terms of like, we're not like the 2nd tier team here. We're not anybody to take lightly. And I think that helped, you know, concrete that into, you know, Montana's culture. And I think I still see a little bit of it today. Explain to my listeners, what's the energy like during the week of practice leading up to this game? Well, I remember my senior year, we beat UC Davis. And we went to the locker room, and there wasn't any good job. We won. It was like Coach Cho walked in, like, get your asses ready for next week. I mean, there was no, like, a couple high fives here and there, but besides that, it was like, get on the bus, watch film, and let's go kick these guys' ass. I mean, it's a SWAT team mentality that week. You go in, you want to be in and out, flip some throws, and get out of there, you know. That week is it's wild. And, you know, as much as I love school, like, there was, you know, school was first, football was second, you know? So, I get it. How good does it feel for you as a player that played in this rivalry to go, you know what? I went up against them 4 times. I was 4-0. Man, just being from the state of Montana, there's not a lot being a sports guy in Montana too, there's not a lot sweeter than being able to say that off the tip of my tongue whenever I need to. It's a beautiful thing, really. I mean, it's an honor and it's a pleasure. And the big thing is it's a pleasure for me to be able to do that for the people that were before me, because I remember a lot of guys would come in and talk to the team and just talk about how badly they wanted to win their, like, however many games it was. They went 2-2 or 1-3, or even some guys, they went 4-0. And really what it came down to at the end of the day is just like, it felt really good to do that for everybody that's on your side. It wasn't even really about you at the end of the day. It felt great to do that for those guys.
What is, in your opinion, Bobcat pride?
Bobcat pride? I mean, there ain't no other word for it besides grit. I mean, it's a blue collar, gold standard kind of program, kind of pride you have. Like, you are proud. You're proud as hell to be a Bobcat, and there's nothing else. You just bleed blue and gold. I mean, it's all that matters to you. And at the end of the day, it's like, those guys were my brothers, and I would have died for each and every one of them. I mean, it came down to some of the tightest chemistry I've ever had with guys, and love and respect. And I think that's what Bobcat pride is all about.
From talking to you, I can hear the passion in your voice for the rivalry and for MSU and for Bobcats. Is it safe to say that this rivalry is ingrained into Logan Jones's DNA now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to get a tattoo of it. It was that special to me, and it was that special to the guys who were around me and to my dad too, my family. I mean, I just, for a little bit there, you could make some people proud, and that felt really good. But yeah, that rivalry, it does. I get pumped up thinking about it, talking about it. Bobcats had me in last year to talk to them about it right before the game. And I can't tell you how many times I cussed and was like, you guys have to reach down their throat and pull their heart out. I mean, you gotta have just some crazy mentality for it. But yeah, it's a part of me, man. I'll never miss that game, I'll tell you.
That's a good point. So let me bring this up then. How hard is it now to watch the game after playing in it?
Yeah, no, that's hard. The year after I was done, they lost, and I didn't even watch the end of the game. I remember I was sitting at a bar in Dillon, because it was in Missoula, and I was like, I don't need to go to that place. I'll get in trouble there. So I'll just stay away and just watched it at bar in Dillon. And me and my buddy Kyle Godecki and Gunnar Brecky, those guys played for the Cats too. We didn't even stay till the end. We're like, oh, screw it. So we went and bought 30 rack of coolers, went out, shot some deer, just racing from the mine for the night, But like watching last year was super fun. There's just, you want to be there. You want to be there so bad, because just the atmosphere is amazing, and what the game means for the state of Montana is so ingrained into its roots. It's hard. I love to watch it, but it was amazing to be there for it.
Since I've been researching and getting into this more and more, and as a sports guy, I need to come watch this game in person. I've not been there. I've never been to either place, but now I'm really curious. I want to come see it.
Tommy, I'll have to get you a ticket. It is the most electric thing in the state of Montana. I mean, Labor Day in Dillon's great. 4th of July Flathead's a big deal, but I mean, everybody goes to the Cat-Griz game. It's an amazing atmosphere. You pop open a screwdriver at 6 a.m. You go tailgate. You go have some fun. You watch this game. You mess with people. You place a couple of bets. I mean, you'd love it. It was a great time. And it was really cool that game day was there last year. That was pretty cool.
Yes,
and they
loved
it.
Do you have a favorite memory of the rivalry? I mean, you've had some really good moments in this history.
Oh, well, it's pretty tough to top the Miracle Missoula just all the way through. I mean, that's that's obviously probably one of my favorite game I've ever been a part of, played in, watched. But I mean, my senior year, there was a couple moments that were my favorite too. Just when we started stomping them, you know, right in the beginning when we got that forced fumble and recovered it and ran it in for a touchdown. I mean, you just feel the energy, the momentum of the stadium, all the people behind you. Is like, we're about to roll these guys, about to beat the brakes off of them. You know, that was a good memory. They're all good. They're all good when you're winning.
You're right. Tell my listeners then this, because you have such a deep passion for it. Can you explain how special of this one game each year is to the entire state of Montana?
Well, there's a saying, you know, they say that you could lose every single game in the season and win that one, and it's a success. It doesn't matter what you did before or after, but that game, whoever comes out on top, like, you know, and that's, I mean, it's huge for the whole state. I mean, it's huge even really for business. Like Rob Ash, he was my coach when I went in there my freshman year, and he didn't win very many of those rivalries, but he was one of the most winningest coaches Montana State's ever had. And, you know, after he lost that last one, they let him go. And, you know, when it comes down to the bottom line, you got to beat that team on the other side. Like, so it's important. It's important for business. It's important to the state. It's important to people. It's important all around.
I mean, you get amped up and motivated for every game, but I got to imagine this game, you're more amped up. You're more motivated. How do you keep your emotions intact to go out and play?
Yeah. You really got to put some blinders on in the beginning. You know, we do this thing called the catwalk. They do still do it actually, but the catwalk was where you started from the brick breed and then you walk to the stadium and the fans just lined up all right beside you. And, you know, they're drunk, they're having a great time. They're like, kick their ass. You're like, you just really got to put the blinders on, just stay focused on the task at hand. You'll have fun after, just win, but it'll all be there after, but you got to focus. And, you know, that's the hard thing to do because the spotlight's on you. And it's the whole state's watching that. So you just really got to focus. The big thing that helped me was just looking at the guys next to me. Because if I don't do my 1/11th on the field, then, you know, we're not going to be successful. So that's what it came down to. It's just my brothers, they're right beside me, and I wasn't going to let them down, and they didn't let any of us down. So
what goes through your mind these days, or ever since you've become a Bobcat, when you see the color maroon? Is it
that ain't for me? That ain't, like, don't buy me maroon clothes, hats, anything. Like, that is just not my color. Nothing. Has nothing to do with, you know, the Grizzlies or nothing either. The color's ugly. I don't like it.
Is it the same thing when you hear somebody say Grizz or Grizzly? Is it a complete, like, whoa, wait a minute, what are you saying here?
Yeah. It's like, what are you talking? Like, I don't want to talk about them. I don't need to talk about them. What do you want to talk about them? I don't like that color. I don't like that word. Like, don't even bring it up to me, man. But I'm just kidding, really. I don't mind them. I have some friends who played over there, and, you know, they're near and dear to me too. But when it was that day, we weren't friends.
Is it a fine line between having respect for the other side, but also having some hatred for them as well?
Yeah. Yeah. No, like, you gotta respect your teammates, or like the opponent. You do, and you have to have you gotta be a good sport. But, you know, for those 3-4 hours that you play that game, like, you never mind. You don't have respect for them. Like, that 4 hours, you want to hurt them. You want to cause some bleeding. You want to bruise. You want to batter. And that's just the only way to play that game, because they're going to do the same thing. I remember every time I got tackled, they were twisting on my legs, ankles. Some guys had their hand up in my face mask, like scratching at my eyes. It's just like, you got to be mean. And football is not exactly like a gentle sport. You got to be mean, really, regardless. It's violent, and that's half the reason I love it too. But you just gotta be mean. And then the respect will come afterwards.
Logan, thanks for taking some time and coming on the program.
Yeah, no problem, Tommy. Thanks for having me.
Hand off to Davis, trying the right side. Jimmy Wilson came up, and then Brandon Dotson hit him, but he's still loose. Lorenzo Davis has got a seam, a blocker, and a touchdown. What a run from Lorenzo Davis.
Wow, that's just fantastic. That was all him. The defense from Montana had him.
This is the ball game. Roper is going to throw it up high in a Hail Mary-like situation, and it is caught for an interception.
Senior co-captain Michael Ryder is made.
Before we wrap up this episode and put a bow on it, I got to do some shout outs and some thank yous that made this podcast possible. First and foremost, thank you to Dave Thiel, a longtime listener, supporter of the show. Greatly appreciate all Dave's support and him connecting me to Kevin Brown at Montana State University that helped me connect to some of these guests, as well as Eric Tabor from the University of Montana in the athletics department. Thank you to Eric for connecting me with some of the guests as well. And let's not forget our guests that made the show possible: Bobby Daly, Colt Anderson, Justin Green, and Logan Jones. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and coming on the show. I also want to give a shout out to the Cincinnati Bengals for connecting me with Colt Anderson. Go to the show notes where you can click out and watch the documentary Miracle in Missoula. It was done by Ahern-Storff Productions. It is excellent. That's also, I want to thank them because I took the clip from the beginning of the show from the Miracle in Missoula. Also, the clips in between all the guests were taken from the Montana Sports Brawl of the Wild throwback, highlights from every game since 1986. You want to check that out? Once again, go to the show notes. That's going to do it for this episode of Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. And until next time, everybody, I salute a chin-chin.
There's obviously bigger Division I rivalries all around the country that are going on. But, as far as a state and the size of the state and the perspective that they have on the game, this one is very, very special.
Rivalry week here in Big Sky Country.
It has all the makings of a classic.
8 teams Brawl of the Wild and
Montana State and Montana.
one of the best rivalries in college football.
It is one of the most heated and historic in all of college football.
And if this isn't the best rivalry in FCS, I don't want to know what is.